Hi, good evening.
Not right away. Today,
Okay, I'm ready.
Ezra Hashem, today's daf is daf Samach Ches and Bava Kamma. We're going to start from daf Samach Zayin Umid Beis.
Beis.
Umid Beis, a few lines from the bottom. Okay, so the Gemara is talking about over here. The Mishnah is gestanen. The Mishnah says, Ein hagoyniv acha haganav. Hi, Sheldon. We just began, Sheldon. Ein hagoyniv acha haganav mishalem tashlume kefil. If a ganav steals from a ganav, the second ganav does not pay the tashlume kefil. So,
His pute.
if a ganav doesn't pay kefil, but he has to pay the thing that he stole. So the Gemara, Omar Rav said, Loi shanu, it wasn't taught, el lifnei yeyush. Only if the original nignav, the one it was originally stole from, he did not give up hope. And he was hoping to catch the first ganav. But if he gave up hope from ever catching the first ganav, so when the second ganav took from the first ganav, the second ganav is stealing from a new owner, which is the ganav. The first ganav now becomes the owner, because Rav is going to hold yeyish alone is koina. So kanoi ganav rishon. After the yeyish, the first ganav was koined. The ganav sheni is stealing from a new owner. Mishalim tashlumi kefil leganav rishon. He will pay tashlumi kefil leganav rishon. So our Mishnah is talking about lifnei yish, but achi yish, the original ganav number one was koina the item. Omer Rav Sheshes, so Rav Sheshes says, Amina, I think to myself, Kinayim v'shochav Rav, Omer lahosh maitza. When Rav was sleeping, that's when he said this comment. Why? The Tanya we learned in a brisa. Omer Rabbi Akiva said, why did the Torah say that you pay tashlume abava chamisha? If you steal a shor or seh, you pay. Rabbi Akiva says, why do you pay 4 and 5? Why was the Torah so strict on you? Because now you made the chet very effective. In other words, presumably, because what Rav Sheshes is trying to say is yish is not kaina. Yish alone is not kaina. The only way yish is kaina is if you change if you do something else with it, such as transferring it to somebody else. So if the first ganav sells it to somebody else, then according to Rav Sheshes, then the new person now becomes the owner. And it's not that the ganav becomes the owner. Yeyish alone is not enough. Because you see, Rabbi Akiva says that when you sell something, you have to pay 4 and 5. Why? Because you made the chait even worse. Now, what does that mean? You made it worse. You rooted the chait. Amos, are we talking about before years? That means the ganav sold the item. When the ganav sold, let's say the shor, the ox, before years, so we go to Amid Aleph. Mi iken ishtarish, did that cause that the item is now in a worse off position? Obviously not, because since the original owner never gave up hope, so even if the ganav sold it, it still belongs to the original owner. So that's not the explanation of nishtaresh bechet that Rabbi Akiva said, oh, that's why the Torah was more strict on a ganav. Ella li'achayish. The Torah was talking about the first ganav stole it, and then it was after yish, and yish alone wasn't enough. But the fact that he sold it caused it now to leave the original owner's possession, because now you have yish and shina rishus. So that's how you explain Rabbi Akiva. And here's the basic question: if you think yeyish kani, that yeyish alone gives you power enough for the ganav to acquire the item, so as soon as the first bailam gave up hope while it was in the ganav number one, so when he sells it, it's really his item. It's his item. So amay mishtalim tashlumei baba chamisha. Why would he pay 4 and 5? Shaloi toveach, shaloi maichet. He's selling his own item. He's selling his own shechting. In other words, it's his. Because if you're telling me that when the nignav gives up hope, it automatically becomes the ownership of the ganav. And therefore, when he shechts it or when he sells it, he's really selling his own item. And he just owes the one he stole from like a check, but he doesn't, the item itself belongs to the Ganav. So why would the Torah Knas penalize him to pay Abba Chamisha? He's selling his own item. Answers the Gemara, Amra, no. If it was Yish, yes, he would coin it. But when did the Torah penalize a person? Is before Yish. And so why were they penalizing? Rava gets somewhere else because twice. So here also you could say he did the chet twice. In other words, he stole it. Give up hope. The guy did not give up hope, right? And then what happened? And then the guy did not give up hope. And then what did he do? He actually sold it. So that's why he gets penalized by Abba v'chamisha. Tashema, come in here. We're coming to prove that Yish alone is not kaina. That's what we're trying to prove. Utvach against what Rav said. The Brisa says you shechted or sold it. The Brisa explains, Ma TV chazeres. You can't reverse a shechting. When you shecht an animal, you can't make it come back alive. So when you sell something, you can't make it. It has to be a complete sale. Amos. What are we talking about? If it's before years, why wouldn't it go back to its original owner? If he didn't give up hope, so the fact that the Ganav sold it should not make it that it's now the new purchaser. He's going to have to give it back to its original owner. It must be after years. Again, if you're going to tell me that the Ganav owns it as soon as the Bailam, the original Bailam, gives up hope. So when the Ganav has it in his possession and he sells it, why would he have to pay 4 and 5? It's his. Again, basically the same kasha. If Yish alone would work, then why would that means that it's the ownership is the Ganav. So why would he pay Dalad V'Hei? Answers the Gemara. So really, you have to say, no, if there was Yish, you're right, it would belong to the Ganav. But the Bryce is talking about there was no Yish. And what does it mean if there's no Yish? How could you say the Mechira is not Chazeres? If there's no Yish, you have to give the item back to its original owner. So the Rav Nachman explained, it means prat l'shehiknu l'shloishim yoyim, hachanami prat l'shehiknu l'shloishim yoyim. It means it's before years, and the Ganav has to sell it completely, a fake sale, a mock sale, obviously because it's before years, but he has to sell it in order to be chayiv dal behei, a sale of no backsies, so to speak, and then he gets the penalty of dal behei. But if he sold it for, let's say, a 30-day period, so that's like renting it, so that's not going to be mechayiv in dal behei. But again, Dal V'Hei is the obligation is when you sell it before Yish, and it's because and it's not a good sale because the sale will revert back to its original owner. But because you did an aver of stealing and then tried to sell it, that's why the Torah penalized you. Meisvei, another question against Rav. The Brisa says, Gonav, a guy steals something, and somebody steals it from him. Second Ganav, Harishim Misham Tashlum Kefil. The first one has to pay Kefil because he stole. Vasheni Eina Misham Ela Keren Bovam. But the second Ganav will only pay Keren, right? He will only pay Keren. He would only pay Keren. We're going to explain that why he only pays Keren, because presumably, he didn't steal from the original owner. He's stealing from a Ganav, and therefore he doesn't pay Kefil to the Ganav. Ganav Amachar, but let's say you stole it. And he sold it, the first Ganav sold it, and another guy stole it from the purchaser. The first one pays Abba v'chamisha because he stole something and sold it, right? He sold it. He stole an ox and sold it. He pays Abba v'chamisha. And the second one will pay kefil. Now, why does he pay kefil if he just stole it? Because presumably that the purchaser actually has a complete purchase. So therefore, when the second Ganav steals it from the purchaser, he's stealing it from a new owner. Let's say you stole it and shechted it, and then somebody stole it from the Ganav after he shechted it. So Harishim Sham Tashlumi Dal Hey because he shechted it, so he pays Dal Behei. Vasheni, the second one, Eina Misham Tashlumi Kefil. He doesn't pay only Tashlumi Kefil. Now that's strange because when the Ganav shechted it, he actually did a Shine Maisa. He stole an ox and then shechted it. So really, he should own that ox now because he shechted it. So the second one who steals from him should be required to pay kefil. So that remains a question. Ela karambat, he only pays this kerem. So the Gemara first assumes that this brisa is a regular brisa, a non-mistakable brisa. But so we learned in the middle case, if you stole and sold it, and somebody came and stole it from you, right? Stole it from the purchaser. The second one pays kefil. Amos, what are we talking about? If we're talking about before yesh, sheni amai misham tashlumi kefil. Why would the second one pay tashlumi kefil? Shini rishus b'la yesh mi'ikla man di'ama dekani. Is there a mandiyama that says you have shin rishus without yish? Is there an opinion that says you're kaina? In other words, once the guy sold it, right? And once the guy sold it, and just there was no yish, so then it doesn't belong to the purchaser, because the purchaser it's just a change of location of where the item is, but the original owner never gave up hope. So if we're talking about before years, then this ganav who steals from the purchaser is not stealing from the owner, and therefore why does he pay tashlume kefil? Ela pshita, it must be talking about lach yish. He stole it, and the guy ganav number one stole it, and then it after years, and then he sold it, right? So therefore you have years in shina rishus, so now it belongs to the purchaser, and that's why the second ganav who steals from the purchaser will have to pay kefil. Again, if you hold yish as kind of by itself, you don't have to sell it in order for the first ganav to own it. The day who dizaben, he's selling his own item. Again, if the yish alone was enough, then really it's there's no dal behay for the first ganav because he's selling his own item. The Su, another question, the Ketani Reish in the beginning of the Brisa, it says, Ganav, a person steals something, and somebody else and steals it from him. Risha Mishalim Tashlume Kefi. The first one pays Kefil. Vasheni Ein Mishalim El Karen Babat. The second one only pays Karen. Right? The second one pays Karen. Michte. You just established that through the second case that the Brisa is La'achish Kamin. The whole Brisa is talking about after years. The Isal Kedaitech yesh kaina, if you're going to think to yourself that yesh alone was kaina, so let's say ganav, guy stole it. Of course, we're talking about after yesh, and somebody stole it from the ganav. So why wouldn't the sheni pay? He's stealing from the new owner. The new owner is the ganav. Sheni amayin mishalem el Karen. Why wouldn't the second one pay only Karen? Well, he should pay kefil because the new owner now is the ganav. Because you're telling me yesh alone is kaina. So here we have a proof of brisa. Yesh loikana. Yesh alone is not enough to make a kinyan to the kashil Rav. So this is all a question against Rav. So the Gemara says two terutza basically. One teretz is Rava's teretz. V'tiz Omar Rava says v'tiz bara ha meteretz tehi. Would you think about it? Is this a normal brisa? Something is a mistake with the brisa. Because if you look at the third case of the brisa, it totally makes no sense, no matter how you learn. The end of the brisa says, Ganav, v'tovach. The man stole it and shecht it. The guy that stole it from the Ganav after he shechted the behema, he only pays keren. So wait a second. But even if there's no yish over here, forget about it. But we're talking about there is yish. But at the end of the day, for sure, when the Ganav shechted it, he changed the whole item that he stole. So it should really belong to the Ganav. So why should the Sheni only pay Karen? He should pay Kefal. Could anybody hold that Shina Maisa is not Kaina? Of course it's Kaina. So there must be something wrong with this Brisa. So once there's something wrong with this Brisa, I could correct the whole Brisa to make it make sense. So the end of the point is that Rav holds Yish alone is Kaina. But the Brisa is talking about there was no Yish. It's only before Yish. We'll turn around the halachic statements of the end and apply it to the second case. The third case we apply it to the second case, and whatever it says in the second case, mitzias in the middle case, we'll apply it l'sefer to the third case. And this is how you read the brisa. Ganav umachar, guy stole and sold it. Uvo acha uganvai, and somebody else came and stole it. Harishon mishalim tashlume abba v'chamisha. The first one pays 4 and 5. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Vasheni, and the second one, einu mishalim ela karen. The second one will only pay the karen. Why? Because it's lifnei yish. So the first guy that stole it and sold it, he did an act of sale, so therefore a mock sale, he pays abba v'chamisha. But the second guy who steals it from the purchaser only pays karen. Why? Because he's not stealing from any new owner. He's not stealing from the owner. The shini rishus below yesh like kani. Shini rishus without yish is not koina. Gonaf v'tovach, someone stole, and then shefted it. V'achon gonvay, and somebody else came and stole it from him. So arisha misham tashlumi abba v'chamisha. The first one pays 4 and 5. V'asheni misham tashlumi kefal. The second one will pay kefal. Why? The kanya b'shina ma'isa. Oh, so therefore that now the whole brisa makes sense. The whole brisa is talking about lifnei yish, and therefore when a guy shechted it, so actually he did a shina ma'isa. Even if there is no yish, the second guy that steals from the ganav, after he shechted it, will pay kefal because now the ganav owns it because he actually slaughtered the animal that he stole. So it's not the same thing that he stole. Rapapa gives a second teretz to make this brisa make sense according to Rav. Loilam loy tepach. Really, you don't turn around the brisa. Useifa, in the same end of the brisa, that says that even after yish, and the brisa is talking about after yish, and yish with shina rishus is kinda, but still, the end of the brisa says that you don't pay kefil because Beishamehi, it goes according to Beishami. The anu shinu b'mkayim oimid. Beishami says no shinu never works. Shinu rishus with yish, it never works. It always remains in the original owner. Okay, fine. So the end of the brisa is not a question. It's not a pop question against this whole thing. But still, if you're not going to make adjustments in the first and second case of the brisa, it's going to be a question against Rav. Ihachi Reisha mitzias the Rav, kasher Reisha mitzias Rav. The beginning of the brisa, the first state said the first case, and the second case is a question of Rav against Rav. Rav says yish is kaina. If so, then why does the gana pay tashlume abba v'chamisha if he's selling his own item? If we assume that the yish happened at the ganav, by the ganav, not by anybody else. Amar Rav Zvid said la'olam kule lifnei yish. Really, the whole brisa is talking about it happened before yish. The whole brisa is before yish. V'hacha b'mayaskinin. Here we're talking about we're talking about that really when the ganav sold it, there was no yish. But after he sold it, then the original owner gave up hope. So at that point, when it's in when it was already in the possession of the lekeach, that's when the yish happened. So therefore, when the ganav sold it, he was chayiv abba v'chamisha. It wasn't the ganav. But when it got into the possession of the new purchaser, then it became the possession of the purchaser from the first ganav, because at that point the original nignaf, the one it was stolen from, gave up hope. Now it becomes yish and shus. And this is a fantastic case. The only way to set it up, and that's what the Gemara is trying to say, is the only way to set it up as a situation where the first ganav will be chayiv abba v'chamisha after he sells it. Guy steals an ox, sells it, he'll be chayiv abba v'chamisha, and the second guy who steals it from the purchaser will chayiv kefal. That's the only way to make it happen, is if you're talking about that the yish happened after the ganav sold it. The only way, don't say, the Gemara concludes, the only say that you need yish and shinu rishus in order to make something a kinyan. If there was yish alone, then it would belong to the ganav. Ella, the reason why we set it up this way, we won't find a case where the first ganav will pay abba v'chamisha, and the second ganav who steals from the purchaser of the first ganav will pay kefil only in this situation. So the bottom line is, let's just remember that there is an opinion of Rav that holds Yish alone would make it the owner's would make it the owner would be the ganav, but the Gemara tried to challenge it, and Rav held his own that Yish alone would be kaina. Now the Gemara talks about not everybody agrees with that. Itmar we learned
We had 8 people last night. We have 8 people tonight. My group. Me, Baruch, Alan, Sheldon.
Itma, we learned someone who sells before years, the Gemara, someone who sells lifnei years, right? A guy stole an ox and sold it before years. Rav Nachman Amachayev. Rav Nachman says you're obligated to pay above a chamisha. Rav Sheshes Amapot. Rav Nachman Amachayev umachore amarachmarim. You sell it. V'hazabed. It doesn't matter if you sold it before years. Lo yishol lifnei years. Lo yishol la'ach years. It doesn't matter what the nignav thinks about what happened to his animal. As long as the ganav sold it, he now gets penalized with above a chamisha. Rav Sheshes Amapot. Rav Sheshes says he potter. Chiyuvi la'ach yeshu. The only way you're chayiv to pay above a chamisha is only if you make a real kinyan where the purchaser can actually keep the animal. The hani maisiv aval then years which shini rishus makes it that the new purchaser can keep it. Aval lifnei years lo yahani maisiv. If a guy sells it before years of the nignav lo mechayiv, he won't be obligated to pay above a chamisha. Dum yedatficha bein the hani maisiv. Just like tvicha, when the Torah says yechayiv above a chamisha, we know that's a full action. That really brings it home. So also, the only time the Torah requires you to pay above a chamisha, if you sell an item, is only if, along with selling of the item, the nignav actually gave up hope of hiding it, of finding it. But lifnei yesh, Rav Sheshes will say yapata. Amar Rav Sheshes said, "No, I mean Allah. How do I know my opinion?" The time we learned to the Brisa. Amar Rabbi Kiva ben Neima. Amar Torah Tavo Machor Sham Davahei. Why did the Torah say that if you sell something, you pay dollar v'hei? The nation starts bechet because you made the chet worse because now it belongs to a new purchaser. So now that proves it. Amos lifnei yesh. If the original nignav they gave up hope, mi'ikin nishtarish. Can you consider that nishtarish bechet? Now you have a new owner. You don't have a new owner. If the original owner never gave up hope, he never gave years, it doesn't belong to the purchaser anymore. It must be talking about after years, and it's only because you have years and shini rishus that's when you chayiv dalad v'hei. So we see that's Rabbi Sheshes explained his opinion that lifnei years you wouldn't get dalad v'hei. Amarava, no, not true. What Rabbi Kiva meant to say is because you did the chet. Really, if you sell something, lifnei yesh, of course, it still belongs to the original owner. But because you did the chet twice, you actually stole something and tried to make a mock sale. That's why you're paying dollar b'hei. But really, the chiyuv could be even lifnei yesh. Tashma, come in here. It says in the Torah, you shefted it and sold it. Ma tvicha she'ein chazeres. Af mechira she'ein chazeres has to be a sale that never can revert back. That means that there's no backsies. In other words, it can't go back to its original owner. Amos, if the original guy who got it stolen from never gave up hope, why wouldn't it go back to its original owner? He still wants it, and he never gave up hope. Ella, it must be that the Rice is telling you that the only time you have dollar v'hei is la'acha years. It's after years. So here you see clearly that, like what Rav Sheshes says, that the only time that the Torah gave you dalad v'hei is only if the original owner gave up hope. Rav Nachman explained, no, really, the Torah, even before years, you have dalad v'hei. You have dalad v'hei. And what the exclusion is that even if you're doing a mock sale, you can't make a mock sale and say, oh, I'm selling it to you for 30 days. Then you won't be dalad v'hei. But if you because that's like renting it. What the Torah means to say is the mock sale that you're doing, because it's lifnei yesh, has to be a sale that looks like it's a complete sale that the ganav says, I don't want it anymore. It's yours 100%. Says the Gemara, V'af Rab Lazar Sava, Rab Lazar also holds chiyuva la'acha yeshu, that the chiyuv of the chiyuv is after yesh. In other words, the chiyuv is after yesh. The Amar Rab Lazar said, Rabbi Loza said, Teda shestam geneva yesh ba'alam hu. Rabbi Loza agreed with Ahmed Beis, Samazayin Ahmed Beis. Teda, I'll prove it to you that when you steal from somebody, he gives up hope right away, especially a geneva. Shaharei Omer Torah, the Torah said, the Torah said that if you sell and shecht it, you pay for Chamisha. Proves Rabbi Loza that it must be talking about after Yish. Exactly what Rabbi Shesha says. So it must be that the guy gave up hope. Says the Gemara, Vidilma La Yash. Maybe the Torah is talking about the guy did not give hope. And therefore the sale is not going to work anyway. So Ella Lavshmam, Ella Mishumdam Rinim, Rabbi Loza concludes, Stam Geneva Yish Bailim here. That proves that the whole Daled Be'eh, because we assume that the guy that got it stolen from is giving up hope. Says the Gemara, Vilma, maybe Afagav the Lo Yayesh. Maybe it's talking about the guy did not give up hope. Maybe the Torah required Daled Be'eh after even before the guy gave up hope. And the Torah is Mechayev the Ganav, even if he's not making a real sale. Amri, so the Gemara says, Lo Yisal Kadaita, I can never say such a thing. Domi the Tvicha, the Torah juxtaposes selling to shechting. Ma Tvicha Dahane Maisav. Just like shechting, it's a kosher shechting. It's a complete action. Ach Mechira Dahane Masav. The only time the Torah penalizes the Ganav is only if you make 100% sale that it can never go back to its original owner. So, if the Torah was talking about before years, then how did his sale become effective? So the Gemara says like this: Dilma, maybe the Sham'i Ayish, maybe the Torah is talking about a case that we heard that he was Miyayish. Again, we agree that you need an effective sale in order to be Chayav Daled Be'eh. But how did Rabbi Lezer say that Stamazai? Even if you don't know for sure, you could always assume that the Nignav, the guy that got it stolen, his ox stolen from, gave up hope. How do you know? Maybe the Torah is talking about a case where we heard the Nignav say, "Oh, I got my ox stolen. I'm giving up hope." How do you know the Torah is talking about that? We didn't ask the Nignav what he did, what happened there. So the Gemara says, "Amri lo yisal kadaitach." I wouldn't have such a harmony. Dumi de tvicha. I say it's similar to slaughtering. Ma tvicha la'alter, ach mechira la'alter. That just like slaughtering, you can the chayiv daled v'hei starts right away. So also the mechira, the chayiv daled v'hei, will start right away, and that could only be you don't know for sure if he was miyayish. So why did the Torah give a penalty of daled v'hei if someone sells it as soon as he stole it? It must be stam geneva is yish. That the guy Stam Geneva was here. So Rabbi Laza agreed with Rabbi Laza agreed with Rav Sheshes, who said that the whole point that the Gemara is talking about after Yish. One more minute. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan said, really, again, the Torah could be talking about penalizing somebody before Yish. Even if you make a mock sale, that's the Torah is penalizing you. And where do you see the Torah penalizes somebody for making a mock sale? Geneva benefesh techir. If someone kidnaps somebody and sells him, well, obviously that's not a real sale, and the Torah is mechayev misa, the guy that did the kidnapping. She'ein yirish bayim v'chayev. So there's no yirish bayim and is chayev. So therefore, it must be Rabbi Yochanan holds that it's lifnei yirish. So we're going to stop over here and just walk away with one thing. The Torah is mechayev you if you steal an ox and sell it. The question is, in order to be mechayev daled v'hei, do you have to make a real sale? In other words, the selling is real, but you also need years in order that the purchaser could fully own the animal. According to Rav Sheshes, that's what the Torah, only then the Torah penalizes you daled v'hei. Rabbi Yochanan and also the other man, the Amma, of Rav Nachman, held that even if lifnei yish, before yish, just the fact that you went through the motions of trying to sell something, the Torah already penalized you to pay daled v'hei. So we're going to stop over here and we're going to discuss Rabbi Yochanan tomorrow.